particular, or grateful. So obviously we're here to worship God. That's what we do on a Sunday. But we're also here this morning to honor mothers. And it's important that we stop for a moment, and hopefully it's every day, but it's actually, you know what, it's in God's top 10. Number 5 says, honor your father and mother, and today's obviously Mother's Day. And so we are commanded to do this, actually regardless of what they do and how good they were. And I know the tongue-in-cheek, with the dedication of a child, some of us have come from crazy backgrounds, and I mean, my parents were just abysmal, and no, I'm teasing. They're in the congregation, so I'm teasing. Some have had better upbringings than others. I was privileged and still privileged to have my folks part of this community and loving on us and all of those good things. But not everybody's had that. But we're still called and commanded to honor our parents. And especially, our mothers have done so much for us. And we've relied on our mothers for many things, especially when you're younger. I mean, I heard of this kind of young guy who got home and his mom was really sick and she was in bed upstairs, and he went up to her and he said, "Mom, are you doing okay?" She said, "No, my boy, I'm really feeling sick." And he says, "Don't worry, Mom. What I'll do is, I'll carry you down so you can make supper for us." True story. So mothers do a lot for us. Now, this is what my mom taught me. She taught me, how to appreciate a really good job well done. She would say to my brother and I, "Please stop killing yourself and get out the house. I've just finished cleaning." She also taught us about religion. You better pray that comes out the carpet. She taught us about time travel. She said, if you don't sort yourself out, I'm going to knock you into the middle of next week. She taught us about logic and foresight. Wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident. She taught us stamina, to not leave the dining room table until all the Brussels sprouts were eaten. She told us about the circle of life. I brought you into this world, I will take you out. She taught us about justice. One day when you have kids, I hope they are just like you. Yes, tongue-in-cheek. And what happened was, I wanted to look, we were obviously doing the series on what does God want, and do we do a Mother's Day message, whatever. And I felt God saying, "No, stop and just honor the moms," because we don't often do that. We normally carry on with the series. And so, I went online. I thought, what are other guys around the world? And I went to the guys I like to follow. And unfortunately, all there was like the 7 marks of a great mother, and this thing of mothers, put on your brave. And I was like, it's not quite something that me as a guy really wants to be preaching. And all these teachings on Mary and the ladies, I want to say to you, moms, you're not called to be like Mary, you're called to be like Jesus. And I think so often what we do is we go below the surface rather than actually go for the primary. The primary is Jesus, not Mary. At the same time, I do believe that the Catholics have got some stuff right. And even though I think they elevate Mary to a place that I don't think she should be, they at least honor her as Jesus' mother. And I think as Protestants, we don't do that enough. And so we've got to have a balance around what we do. The point is, though, and all of what I want to say is, I was preparing this. I was trying to see what to prepare, and I went to the kitchen and I made myself a cup of coffee. And coffee is always the lever of all things. And I'm teasing, but I was walking down our passageway and I felt God drop in my spirit. Why don't you tell your story? Why don't you speak about your mom and how she's taught you to be like Jesus? And obviously, I've had a bit of fun with some of those anecdotes, but some of them are true, aren't they? And so this morning, please allow me a bit of self-indulgence as I honor my mom. I'm also actively and acutely aware that some moms are not here this morning. And I want to take this moment to do a couple of things. Number one, we've got candles there. I don't think, are they just on the one side or both sides? They're there. What I want you to do is, if your mom's not here, let's remember the moms that left a legacy in our lives. And let's go and light a candle in remembrance of them. And maybe they're not biological moms. Maybe they were spiritual moms. It doesn't matter. Let's get up and let's remember moms no longer present, because they may be gone, but they're not forgotten. So won't you come and do that, please? And let's remember that motherhood and fatherhood is not just biological. It's spiritual too. And it's important for us to understand that. And before I carry on, I want to just honor my own wife, who is the mother of our 4 amazing kids, and they are amazing. And I know, I'm, obviously biased in that regard, but we've got 4 amazing kids that are a product of mostly her mothering, with me not always being around. And I know sometimes she says, I feel like a single parent. So our kids are a reflection more of Louise than they are of me. And it's imperfectly done. Our kids are imperfect. But, babe, I just want to honor you for all the time and the space that you give me to run the race that God's given me. So honor you as the mom of my kids. And so when we look at this whole thing, I want to say my mom taught me to be like Jesus, and she's sitting right there. So forgive me if I do get emotional now and again, because it's part of the deal, isn't it? But my mom served others unselfishly, and especially my brother and sister and myself. She did it in the most unbelievable ways. And, Jesus said, I didn't come to serve. I didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. I've seen my mom do that. I've seen my mom in many instances within our kind of home life growing up that she did that for us. And in all of this, she was mom's taxi. If any of you are swimming parents or you've got kids that swim, we've obviously got kids now that swim, but my mom used to take us all over the place. And what was crazy was I used to train at Greenside High School, and we lived in Blegari, so she had to get us there. But I was going to Blegari Primary, but then I went to Greenside High, but then I changed coaches and ended up at Zoo Lake. And then my last year of training was actually at Ellis Park, and my mom used to trek us there, maybe not every day, but at least 3 or 4 times a week to Ellis Park. And so I know, Dale, who's my nephew, my sister, obviously his mom, she's one of the most servant-hearted people I know. In fact, she doesn't stop. She's got red hair, and we call her our Duracell bunny, the one with the copper top. She just keeps going. And if you're ever in her home, she'll serve you and love on you like nothing else. And my brother's the same. He's very good with his hands, Scotty, and he's now in Scotland. I miss him, not just for who he is, but also it's like, geez, this thing's not working. Scotty, come help. And he's an amazing, he can work anything out. I could give you examples, so many examples. We used to cut each other's hair at one point. He looked ridiculous. I looked fine. So, just what my mom instilled with us, that hopefully who me, and I think I've got a heart to serve others, and to put them first, and to see other people come into what God's called them into. My mom showed me compassion. Jesus was a compassionate person, and there's many texts I could have used here, but this one in particular, there was a large crowd after they landed on the shore, and it says Jesus had compassion on them and healed the sick. And there are many times my brother and I in particular had man flu, and my mom would come alongside us and care for us and all that, and was kind of the epitome of a mom as far as that's concerned. I used to have a recurring nightmare growing up. I won't tell you what it was. It actually had to do with my mom and losing her. Grateful that God's kept her to this age. Maybe she's not with her kind of body as it starts to fade, like all of ours. But, there were many times I would knock on the door 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and she'd come and she'd sit with me in the lounge until I was able to get to sleep again. My mom showed me forgiveness. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. And again, there's many scriptures I could use here. And in this process, my mom showed us that, there were many people that disappointed her. Many people that have disappointed us, disappointed me. But she continued to forgive, kept loving people, never trying to defend herself, and just kept seeking out connection and love with people. And I've quoted this many times from this pulpit, that unforgiveness is like taking poison and hoping the other person will die. And she taught me that. Like, why are you allowing others to steal your joy? And I love the fact that, so this was a crazy story. So I was studying at varsity, and I was trying to get through my, I think it was varsity. It might have even been matric. I think it was matric, actually. And I was struggling with my maths, and one of the guys at my mom and dad's, they hosted a life group or home group in our home. And my mom had this China tea set. It was beautiful. They got it for their wedding. And in fact, she got 2 sets, so that was a double set of China. And she never used it, and she decided, you know what, I'm having home group, for goodness sake, let's just use this thing. I was just sitting there gathering dust. And so for weeks they'd used it and whatever else. And that amazing like gold kind of painting trims and everything. And what had happened was I'd come in, I was studying in my room. I had a room outside. I'd come in and they'd finished life group and I was connecting with the people and I was helping clean up like a good son does. And people had put a whole bunch of these things onto a breadboard and I was walking to the kitchen and as I turned into the kitchen, the breadboard hit the side of the door and they all fell off. I mean, I was devastated, just knowing that this was a gift for their wedding, whatever else. Do you know that my mom just took it in a stride and she said, Gary, it was an accident, cleaned it up with me, and that was it. She knew that this was not something I did on purpose. This was not something that, Gary, don't carry it like that, and I did it anyway, or I was rebellious, but this was a pure accident. And the forgiveness flowed, and I felt, sure, okay, yes, it was just an accident. That's exactly what it was. And even though to this day I think, oh, I wish I'd done something different that day. And if I ever carry something on a breadboard, again, I'm very, very careful. My mom loves unconditionally. There's many times that, we've done things that would cause her to not love us. And maybe she didn't like us at some times. And it often happens with our kids, doesn't it? But, John, the disciple, I love this because he's writing this, isn't he? And in fact, some of the translations are a little bit more. The disciple that Jesus loved the most, and I guess we all feel like Jesus' favorite at times. But he's reclining with Jesus. He's connecting with Jesus. He's at all the big moments from the transfiguration to when Jesus declares himself to be the Son of God, all of those things. And, the thing about love is it looks like something. Like, I think we throw this word on, I love you. I love you. But love looks like something. And if you're being abused by somebody and they tell you love you, that's not love. We need to understand, and what's beautiful about the Bible is 1 Corinthians tells us what love is. So if love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. That's what love looks like. If it's not looking like that, it's not love, no matter what somebody says. I love lemon meringue pie, but it's not the same as me looking at Louise and saying, I love you, babe. It's not looking at my mom and saying, I love you, mom. Hearing, I love you, Gary, from my mom. Those things have to be demonstrated, otherwise they are not love. Now, I experienced many of those attributes from my mom. Many of what you saw in 1 Corinthians. And what I loved about that is, love protects. I remember, and I can't remember, I think I know who it was, but I wasn't sure. They said to me, Gary, your mom is like one of those lionesses. And if you've seen a lioness protect their cubs, if somebody came near us kids, she would go into full evangelism mode because she would introduce them to Jesus. Full beast mode. My mom is committed to us in the most profound ways. And Jesus, we know, is committed to us, that he laid his life down for us, because this is what love is. Love commits. See, we live in a world right now, it's like you say, you invite people and they go, well, I'll let you know. And then whether they feel like it in the moment, they decide to come or not come. We as a church and as a community need to stop doing that. When we have events on and we have stuff on and you've committed to it, go to it. Obviously, there's reasons why sometimes you can't. But if you're going, I just feel too tired, and you don't really go. But that's what our world has become to. There's no longer our yes is yes and our no is no. It's like, I'll see what if I feel like it. And we go with what our emotions say and what we want. Jesus said to us, that he laid down his life. And then he said to us that he'll be with us until the end of the age. And I preached on that, I think, last week. So Jesus is committed to us no matter what. All authority in heaven and earth, go make disciples, and I'll be with you until the end of the age. I will be with you until the job's done. That is commitment. And that is what I know that I received from my mom. Because when you go have breakfast, who do you think's more committed to your bacon and egg breakfast, the pig or the chicken? My mom is the pig. That was a joke, guys. Seriously. But she gave all of herself to us as children in every single aspect of of how we grew up, not just about how we felt or how she felt, or I don't really feel like doing this. No, kids need to get to swimming. She got us there. The kids need to get to school. The projects that she used to do for us, especially my brother, who would tell my mom at 6 o'clock the evening before he had to hand it in. So my mom got great marks for our projects. The school lunches. My mom made us a lunch every single day. Every single day. We didn't make our own lunches. Now, the only thing is you had to tell her now and again, like, okay, can we change it up a bit? Because, pickled onion and cheese was kind of now getting a little bit stale in the taste buds. But as young boys, when you're at school, you hit break and you smash those things, My mom definitely showed us generosity. And Jesus, for God so loved the world that he gave. I mean, right there, that we would not perish, but have everlasting life. That's the picture of generosity. And I never saw my mom withhold in any way with us. In fact, I often saw my mom when she would make like a really good dinner that we really liked, and we would like chow down and we wanted more. My mom would give us the plate, and then I would see her afterwards fixing herself something light to eat because she had given us stuff. I learned never to ask for more because my mom would just give it to us and go without. And so she showed me how to be like Jesus, to live unselfishly or a selfless life in terms of others. And I know that I'm a work in progress. You all know me. But I do know that there's a lot of work still to be done in my life. But I experienced Jesus through my mother. And she's inspired me to be more like Jesus. And so I just want to say thank you, Mom. And I love you. Okay, so now I've had my self-indulgent moment. I wanted to finish off this morning by actually a heart's cry to moms, kind of what I'm seeing as a pastor, what I'm seeing across the world today. And what that is arguably Mary was Jesus' first disciple. I mean, as much as she was mothering him, she was his first disciple, because he would have, if you remember, he was 12 years old and they couldn't find him, and 2 days later they're traveling, they don't have him near them, and they go back, and there he's teaching in the temple courts at 12 years old. So I'm pretty sure that he was kind of a little further ahead than most. The thing is, though, she brought him into this world. Without her, Jesus wasn't possible. Without you as moms, it's not possible. That's why, in terms of some of the stuff, a man and a man can't produce. A woman and a woman can't produce. That's why you need a man and a woman to multiply and to extend the Eden mandate. Do you know that Jesus made Mary's sacrifice possible? Think about that. The way she mothered him, well, first of all, birthed him, and then took care of him, and then would have discipled him to a point before he started to disciple her. She would have created a space and been a witness to the world that he would follow to ultimately do the most unselfish act by dying for you and me. This is the Michelangelo Pieta. I think it's called La Pieta. Beautiful sculpture. And Rich was telling me that Anita was online with the art class on Friday. And interesting thing of Mary being so young, because she obviously wouldn't have been that young, but the artist was obviously trying to portray a young Mary. Interestingly, a young Mary, because she said yes as a young Mary, but she followed through to ultimately for Jesus being the sacrifice for the world. And the thing of her being much bigger than Jesus. And all of these aspects of what the artist was trying to express. But it's all brought out in this, how Mary basically was the foundation that created the sacrifice for Jesus that changed the world. Now, when we look at this, is that because Jesus gave himself fully to God and his purposes, the question is with all of us and how he was tortured, he was betrayed, he was put to death, but out of that came resurrection and new life. Why would that be any different for all of us? I mean, how many of you have been betrayed? Okay, I don't know how many have been tortured. There's probably a few here. Don't tell us, because you probably were in the army or something. and captured or whatever. But maybe there's other things, disappointments, all of those things. Maybe you feel like things have died. We've had death. I mean, we celebrated Bosco's life yesterday morning. And I see Catherine here and miss seeing his face right now, as I said yesterday in the memorial. Life is short. But the beautiful thing was Catherine, little Gunza, stood up here and she gave a eulogy for her dad at 6 years old and ultimately thanked her dad for the legacy of introducing her to Jesus. Wow. That's a life well lived. Anyway, the new possibilities in the new life. Louise and I, before we had kids, we weren't sure we were going to have kids. Why bring children into this cruel, crazy world? And clearly they changed, but why bring them into this world? I'm sure people have asked that question. I'm sure many of us have asked that question, not just ourselves. But what I would say to moms is, moms don't want their kids to suffer because of the cruel world we live in, the crazy stuff that we see around. I mean, I was listening to some kind of thing online, and it was a news report, and I thought this is quite interesting. And what it was this guy had died, and the mother had, in order to help her kids work through the grief, she had done a book, like a cartoon, colored in book or whatever you want to call it, to help her children and be able to, and other children who've gone through grief, the loss of a parent, work through their grief. I mean, amazing, eh? But what they've just found out was that she actually killed him. She poisoned him. Now you sit there going, huh? How does this work? In this crazy world that we live in, that somebody could actually do that, kill their husband, and then come alongside their children and make money out of it through a book to help kids deal with grief. And so all of the stuff is we find that mothers, I want to say to you, don't mollycoddle your kids. I'm going to show you why I'm saying this. I was chatting with Neil last week. Neil's just spent some time in New Zealand. And we were chatting just over here last week. And I said, how was your trip? And one of the first things he said was, actually, Gary, they've got everything that opens and shuts. Everything is done for the teenagers. They're all on the door. They don't have to really work. He says, but they've got the highest suicide rate in the world. So I went to fact-check him. He's 100% right. And they've got the highest suicide rate by a country mile. All the first world countries have the highest suicide rates among teenagers. Not overall suicides, I'm talking teenagers. Why? Because vision is taken away. Why? Because these young folk are not kind of brought up in a way that helps them deal with the stuff. Because they've given this, I heard Jordan Peterson say this, radically unconstrained freedom is actually destabilizing. When you give kids everything to run for, they did a study, they put kids in a playground and they put a fence around it, and the kids played all over the playground. Then they took the fence down and said, now give them freedom. And what did they do? They all huddled in the middle. They were too scared to go to their outer boundaries. Radically unconstrained freedom is destabilizing. When we get drowned in possibilities, I mean, when Louise and I went to the States, and we spent a year there, well, roughly a year, and we went to Boston, and we went into our first spa, corner store, supermarket, whatever you want to call it. And I promise you, as long as this wall was milk, vitamin E enriched, lactose free, full cream, fat free, 2%, 1%, this milk, that milk, whole wall. We go and we want to just get some detergents to do our clothes. Now, there was no Omo, there was no any of that stuff. Yeah, Sunlight, nothing. There was Tide, which if you've been overseas, you know Tide's a big name. So we had to we actually walked out not buying a thing because we were so traumatized by, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to buy. Phone my mom, what in North America, what do you buy? Because they lived in Canada and they were married there. My sister was born there. What do we buy? No, buy Tide, buy this, buy that. I think the only things we knew was Colgate and Kellogg's. That's all we could. The rest was just foreign to us. And the point is that you get drowned in possibilities, don't you? Like, which shampoo is the best one? Which is the perfect one? Which is the best one for you? And so you just don't, I don't know what to choose. And our world is full of that. And what we do is, now I want to say, and I don't know if there are kids around here, but hear me, you cannot become anything you want. Now, whatever you put your mind to, you can do well at, but I cannot become a woman. No matter how hard I try. I can identify as a woman. I am not a woman. I won't be biologically a woman. I mean, now you've got furries, people believing that they're wolves. In our St. Stithian school. This is what's happening with our world today, is that people are saying, I believe I'm this. I'm struggling with my own internal. Now, why are we allowing our kids to go through those processes and saying, oh, it's okay, you can believe what you want because that's what you want to be. No, you cannot be those things. I cannot be a wolf. I'm a human being. We laugh at it, but this is where our world's going. And then our kids, you can be whatever you want to be, and then they go out into the big wide world, and what happens? That world eats them alive. Because why? Because we actually haven't given them the ability to deal with just the difficulties and the pain and suffering that this world has. See, biblical freedom is I'm no longer a slave to sin, but I become a bond slave of Jesus. I deal with what's in my mind, and I'm no longer enslaved by my mind that's telling me I'm useless and I'm whatever, because I engage Jesus and I see his love for me in his eyes, and it changes me from the inside out. And I know who I am and whose I am. And if I don't do that, then what happens is I live outside the boundaries of things and chaos results. What happens in Genesis 1? The Holy Spirit is hovering over the waters and actually says the chaos. And he brings order. Our God is a God of order. A man will leave his mother and father and he will come one with his wife. And together, side by side. Not the man is, hey, I'm the head of the home. You listen to what I say and you submit, woman. If that's who you are, I plead with you under God, stop doing that. And come and speak to me, and I will show you from Scripture that actually our wives should be right next to us, side by side. Not taken from a rib, but from my side, from Adam's side. Together, the Eden mandate is man and woman together. It doesn't say, oh, Adam, you do that, and just bring your wife along. Ladies, I am so sorry on behalf of the church and church leadership that you have felt second-class citizens. We need to stop this as the church, and we need to be examples with our wives next to us, forging ahead what God's called us into. You know what? If you go out on the roads now, how many of us enjoy the taxis? I don't see any hands. Why don't we enjoy them? Because they don't drive within the boundaries and the legal boundaries that are put in place on our roads, do they? They do what they want, when they want, how they want. And what happens? People actually get killed because of it. Because they go through red traffic lights, they go down side roads, they don't look at other cars coming, they do all of those things. How about playing sport? How would you like to be playing a rugby game and the opponents can actually run outside the boundary lines and go score? I didn't hear that? Yeah, it'd be frustrating, wouldn't it be? I mean, thank goodness the Storm was won. Hey, Glenn? Jeez. They're going to give us a bit of a heart attack there for a moment, and beautifully, the finals, if you don't watch rugby, the final of the URC is in Cape Town. And if Stormers win it 2 years in a row, there we go. Anyway, sidetrack, squirrel, sorry. The point is if they were playing their game yesterday and one of the Connacht guys decided to go and just run outside the lines and go and score around the other side of the poles, run up into the stands, they couldn't get him, and then go score a try, and the ref went try, we'd all go, hey, come on, guys. I mean, there's enough shouting at the ref as it is. You like that? Yeah. I'm covering you, James. I'm covering you. Been there, done that. Yeah, I was watching Dylan play rugby last weekend, and I actually went to the principal and I said, they got thumped all 3 games, and I said, because it's 7 aside, so it's quite quick. And I said, actually, I don't mind that they lost, and they do need to work on their skills. I said, but the way that they conducted themselves, I am ashamed to be called a parent of XYZ school. And they were much better yesterday, and they won a game, and they did it well. And why? Because they actually addressed it. And they said, guys, it's not all about winning. Yes, we want to win. I mean, you don't want to lose. But actually, lose well, win well. Don't be like England at the World Cup final. Had to throw that in. Anyway, let's move on. I'm now not in my notes. And the point is that there will always be chaos if you don't know who you are and whose you are. God is a God of order. See, we don't teach our children to persevere through pain and suffering. In fact, we shelter them from it. And like I said, we shelter our kids. So moms, please don't do that, because normally it's you. And why I say it's you is because James 2 says, consider it pure joy. Now, I know this text is like, what? My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds and tribulations, difficulties, what? They cause pain and suffering. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you might mature and be complete and lacking in nothing. You see, trials does bring, the reality is when we go through stuff, it's difficult, it's painful. But if we are shielding our kids from it, they don't grow. They're not given the ability with the steel in their bones to deal with what's out there in the world. There's a forging of character that happens through the process of pain and suffering. Children are so unprepared with this world that they actually lack grit. And we need grit. And Bill Hybels, some time ago, and I know he's maybe not the best guy to quote, but I honestly believe God gave him this, was grit is the passion and perseverance over the long haul. You know, we live in a world now that we face difficulty in one way or another, and then we just pull the ripcord and we're out. And persevere through it. Whether it be work, whether it be relationships, whether it be that. It's like, no, I'll divorce. Oh, I'll get out. That's not love. Love works it out. Love is patient. Love is kind. Now, with all of this, grit actually expects hurdles and actually demands hurdles. Actually wants there to be a resistance, because through resistance, things happen. Do you know that resistance is how a pearl is made inside the oyster? It's through the rubbing and this beautiful pearl results. The sequoia trees that we often talk about, Louise and I, these massive trees that are in California, and you look at these things and they are huge. I can't even comprehend it. Even if I gave you a picture there, you wouldn't really comprehend it. One has got a hole in it and a truck can drive through it. That's how big these things are. That one is 11 meters in diameter. I mean, 11 meters, that's a long way. 89 meters tall. Its branches are bigger than most trees we've got in Johannesburg. But you know how they are planted, or how their seeds germinate? Through fire. A diamond, how is it produced? Rich? Under pressure. Under pressure. The enemy of grit is ease. I'm not saying don't love on your kids. Hopefully I've shown you what my mom did for me. But she also allowed me to make my own mistakes, to help me deal with the stuff that's in me. And we need to start to assign our kids some difficult tasks, to encourage them to achieve them. We're not talking performance. Like, oh, you didn't do it, you useless. Blah. No, it's for destiny's sake. Hey, let's unpack why it didn't work. Let's unpack why your first love hurt you so much. Let's unpack why some of this stuff happens like this. Let's unpack the fact that that race that you swam and you're so disappointed in. Why do you think it's so disappointing? Come, let's go train harder. Come, I'll come with you. I'll take you to the gym. I'll get in the pool with you. There's nothing better for me than swimming alongside my kids. I just see their bubbles now, which is not so cool, but that's how it should be, shouldn't it? Give them chores to do. As my kids are my witness last night, well, night before actually, all at supper together, and then they just disappear, and it's just a mess. Come. Not this in South Africa. Oh, we've got a domestic worker, they'll clean up after us. Now, there's a story of Chris Venant, who led Glenridge Church for, I think he planted Glenridge Church, then went across and took over a church in California, which is still going. And he said they used to have South Africans come across as part of the new covenant ministry stuff. And he said it was amazing, because in America, you don't have the domestic service that we have here. And he said all the South Africans would eat and leave their junk and get up, and then all the Americans would clean up. South Africans, we need to learn something. Take ownership, make our own beds. Teach your kids to do that. Train up your child in the way they should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart from it. It's important for us to understand that, because with all of this, if we shelter our kids from pain and suffering, then what we need to do is encourage our kids to invite Jesus into that fire. As much as fire germinates the seeds of the sequoia plant. We had our men's meeting here on Thursday night, and Dale sang that song. And Justin was speaking on that, because and and they didn't even talk, and that was what came through. We need to teach our kids that sometimes you go through the valley of the shadow of death. God doesn't take you out. In fact, don't ask him to take you out, because then he'll kill you. It's a joke. Go through the valley of the shadow of death, because on the other side is a party, a celebration in the presence of your enemies. Those who say to you, you're useless, you won't make it, you're this, you're that, all the criticism. Actually, when you go through that valley and come out the other side, God will have a party. So, train up your child. That helps them develop perseverance and grit. It helps them be sacrificial and not just live for themselves, but live for the benefit of others. It helps them love, knowing that it may end in pain and rejection, but that they will keep loving. You know, the more you love, the more pain you will experience in moments where you get rejection. Commit and never walk away, but try and work it out. Forgive those who've trespassed against you as he's forgiven us. Have compassion on others. You don't know what it's like being in somebody's shoes. And that good old adage, until you've walked in somebody's shoes, don't think you know what's going on. Why don't you find out? Why don't you seek first to understand before being understood? Honor and respect others. Outdo others in giving generosity. Because you know what? Behold, Jesus makes all things new. And let's watch this quick video clip from the Passion, and then we're going to do communion. Powerful picture, isn't it? So moms, I want to encourage you, be there for your kids. But what Mary did was she laid a foundation for Jesus to do what he did. And we do that, and you especially as moms, lay a foundation that your kids will do the things that Jesus would be doing if Jesus were them. And if you can disciple them, then they will disciple the nations and change the world. So Dale, if you and the team can come up. I know we've been a bit long this morning with the dedication and stuff, but thanks for lingering longer. But let's just finish off with doing communion. And I'd love you to do it amongst family. And I know some people may not have family here. Well, if you see someone on the draw them in, because this is family. But what I mean.